Building Civic Power in the Digital Age. And we're super excited to have you here with us today on this beautiful afternoon on Sunday. We're going to try to go a little faster so you can get out of here on time. So I'm going to begin. Claudia, can you switch this? So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about why we're doing this workshop and why it's so important for our communities. This workshop is so important because right now you have a voice, you have the power to make change. And we saw this happening in the Mamdani mayoral election. We're seeing it happening now more and more, where one vote, one movement, one coalition can make such a big difference. So we are doing this workshop so that you're informed, that you have the knowledge that you need to make decisions about who you vote for and how you can impact the world around you. So in the introduction, we're just going to talk about what AAIRE is and who we are. We're going to thank, of course, our wonderful partners who have helped bring this event together. We're going to talk again about digital literacy and the background about voting. We're going to talk about the American electoral system. We're going to talk about a very important topic, Census 2030. And then we're going to do a really fun activity, and hopefully the AC will kick in more when we're doing this activity, which is assessing candidates. And then we're going to talk a little bit about this amazing new app, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit app called the AAF Ballot Builder, which will help be a resource for voting. So who are we? The Asian American Institute for Research and Engagement. We're a nonprofit here in Long Island and New York City. We aim to uplift our communities. You can go to the next one. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our team. I'm the founder, Farrah Mozawalla. We have our board member, Juleigh Chin. We have Claudia Cheng, who is our program director, who is really the this was her idea. Like the workshop that you see, the presentation you see, she's like the brains behind this whole operation for this workshop. Aisha Fatima, who is not with us today, but she is our coalition engagement director. We have Aman Masalawala, who is our internship director. Aman, you want to just stand up? So our internship program this year, we had over 50 candidates apply. And we have about 10 interns for AAIRE this session, but it's a very popular program and he's running the program. So if you are interested for your kids, reach out to him. He makes the decisions, not me. Athul, where's Athul? Athul he does our communication, but I want to tell you a fun fact about Athul. He's the youngest elected Asian official in New York State. Is that correct? He just won school board in the Herrick School District. We have our licensed mental health counselor, Shauna Walters. And Brandy, who is not with us today, but our care management coordinator. Go to the next slide. So these are our areas of impact for AAIRE. Research, which is like our bread and butter. That's what we do. We tell our story using numbers. We do education and, can you just go back? Community health, youth empowerment, cultural and storytelling, civic engagement, advocacy, and immigration. Our research is, again, the most important part of our institute. We've done three polls and 3 research papers, white papers. A lot of times we work with universities. Our main university of collaboration is Hofstra University. We have all of our research is online. It is primary sources of information. It's authentic sources of information. So if you ever need any information on anti-Asian hate, Islamophobia in Long Island public schools, or language accessibility on Long Island, you can, of course, read our research papers. Next one. So for professional development trainings, we do professional development trainings in school districts throughout Long Island and actually throughout New York State. All of our professional development trainings are taught by certified teachers. And we teach about Islamophobia, anti-Asian hate, the Asian diaspora here on Long Island and in New York City. So that's what our professional development trainings are. We do about like 25 to 30 a year. We do toolkits. We just completed a toolkit on anti-Asian hate and one on anti-Arab hate. Oh no, I'm sorry, anti-Arab hate and then on Islamophobia for some of the social service providers here in New York City. And of course, we're very involved with anything dealing with immigrant affairs. Community health, this is where Shauna comes in. We offer 3 services for community health. The first is we have a one-on-one mental health counselor, which is Shauna, on staff. So if you ever need any one-on-one mental health counseling, we offer that for free for the community. We have workshops for mental health to destigmatize mental health, and also just to talk about anxiety, stress, toolkits on how to deal with those issues. And finally, which is becoming a popular initiative that we're doing, Healing Circles for Women, which is a 4-session series that Shauna conducts for the community. So those are our mental health initiatives that we work on. For immigration and legal services, we're like the 311 for the Asian community, an ambassador within the community. So people call our office all the time asking for services. These are our top 4 services that people ask about. We help refer them to other institutes or government resources for them. One of the main ones is obviously right now is immigration. One of the things we do for immigration is we connect you with our elected officials on the federal level, and we do letters of recommendation if you need it for your immigration status. Go to the next one. Again, like I mentioned about our youth program, this is one of our most popular programs. And, there's so much engagement within our youth that we do. We do the internship, the fellowship. We have mental health workshops with them. We actually have one coming up with Northwell Health, which is a first aid training, which is sold out, which is super exciting when they get a certificate. So these are some of the programs that we have for mental health and youth. So we do have a podcast and we're on the radio. It's on 88.7 FM, WRHU radio. So if anybody still listens to radio, it's at 7 o'clock in the morning on Fridays. But we also have it available on podcasts on Google, Apple, and Spotify. And we've done, different diversity initiatives such as an Asian American identity initiative, community events. We speak at different events. We do oral history workshops, cultural celebrations. So that's what AAIRE is about. Now I want to thank a lot of our partners who put this together, because this workshop is so important for all of our communities. And the way that we do this is by making these coalitions. And as I look around this room, there are so many leaders here that any one of them can come and talk about the importance of this, because they're the leaders and the stakeholders within their community, and they're already leading these initiatives. So we have a lot of partners. We have the Asian American Federation, APA Voice, which you'll hear from, American Muslim Network, APPAC, Muslims for Progress, CARE, HAB Bank, the Sony Center, South Asian Cultural Alliance, SACA, and we have Mohammed Mukhtar, who is a CPA, who has helped sponsor this event also. I do want to say something about HAB Bank. I say it wrong every time. HAB Bank. HAB Bank has been with us from the inception. Every time we do anything, they're the first ones to support us, and not just AIRE. They support so many community groups here in New York State. So thank you so much for all your support. If you don't have an account there, get an account there. I just wanted, AIRE is located in Plainview, New York. We just opened up our second office in Fresh Meadows, and our councilwoman for that office is Council Member Linda Lee. So today we have Linda Lee's Chief of Staff, Keith, here, who showed up, probably the only one who showed up on time, ready to go. Yes, I put his picture up. So come on up, Keith, if you want to just say a couple of words.
Thank you, Farrah. First of all, I know you asked for a headshot. I actually didn't think you were going to use it. It's funny because I'm actually a lawyer by trade, and that was my firm shot back when I was an actual lawyer. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot about AIR over the past few months. I would say we had actually, we were considering funding AIR because Farrah came to us and said, it turns out we are on Long Island, but it turns out a lot of the people that come to us live in Queens, and specifically in Councilmember Linda Lee's district. And I actually did not know that you were moving to Fresh Meadows until a few minutes ago. So that's really great. So we want to continue the partnership with AIR and all the other nonprofits that we work with, like APAG. I see Ali here that we do a lot of work with. I saw the theme of this event, and I feel like I'm going to learn some stuff too about new age civic engagement and just how we get into the new age. I still consider myself old school. I still feel like getting to people and getting to the doors is the most important thing to get to know what services people have. But it's a changing world. Like you see Farrah just gave out a flyer that's AI generated. You see a lot of those things running around right now. It makes things so much easier and it just gets to people quicker. So something I might look young, but I'm actually feel older than I am. Like I need to learn about this stuff too, because we're in a new world now. You have to get to people in a different way, especially younger people. AI to me is scary, but I see, look what you probably did that in like 10 seconds. I would have taken 2 days to do that. Like that flyer over there.
Which one?
The one over there, the green one.
Oh, that's not ours.
That's not, okay, that's not yours. But yeah.
No,
Either,
this one, right?
yeah, that one. Either way, like it would take me 2 or 3 days just to figure out how to do that. But AI took God knows how long to do that. So it's very important to get up to date in this new age and get to people, like whether it's political stuff, whether it's just services that things like AIR does. It's just very important to get to people. Mix in the old school stuff, obviously meet people where they are, but just get to social media and get to all these new mediums. Like you're doing podcasts now, that's great. So just getting, as I said, getting to people is the most important thing. And I'm very happy that we're going to be working more together now that you're in the district.
Thank you so much. I have your headshot up too. Yes. So if you want to say a few words, so APAG has been one of our supporters for a while now. And Ali Bai, if you want to just say a couple of words about the work that APAG does.
So, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ali Rashid. I'm the founder and president of American Pakistani Advocacy Group. We are based in Queens, but we do work nationally and focus on tri-state and New York City, majority of it. Our key focuses are 4 things, right? Our main focus is get civic engagement for our community. And you have seen that 3-4 years ago, APAC was founded in 2020. 3-4 years ago when we started, we have a lot of people in the community pushing a lot of mail-outs and all these things, which is great. We wanted to focus on civic engagement. So that's what we did. And that's our main focus. And from that, you can see there's so many community partners I know who have been part of it. But what New York City did last year, electing the first Muslim mayor, it's historic. And that, we always talk about having seat at the table, but now we have the full table. So now we need to take it to the next steps. Second thing we do is basically women and youth empowerment, right? That's big for us. If you look at our organization, it's consists of youth, and we want to have the platform for the Pakistani and all the South Asian, because if we live in New York and we live in America, a lot of the South Asian, the Pakistani, Bangladesh, Indian, is a very similar issue that we face. So that's big for us. And third thing, we promote entrepreneurial and professionalism. And fourth thing, again, we're from Pakistan, so we definitely have to promote our culture, where we came from, our heritage. And our motto is simple: engage, empower, elevate. Simple 3 words. We want to engage our community, empower our community, and elevate. And what Farrah is doing, what Ari is doing, great workshop here. We are happy to support, and we'll continue to collaborate. And civic engagement now, why this is so important, because digital literacy is not technology anymore. It is civic responsibility for all of us. So, listen to this conversation. I'm looking forward to it, and keep up the good work. And anybody who wants to collaborate, work with us, feel free. I'm here. Hashim is here. I was executive director. And best wishes, and thank you, Farrah, and all the team. And I see so many good friends, Imran, so many, all here. So thank you, everybody, and looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next one is APAC, APPAC, not APAC, APPAC. Do you want to say a few words or do you want?
I think I can say so.
Okay.
Hi guys, my name is Sohail Rana. I'm from APPAC. APPAC is American Pakistani Public Affairs Committee. We have three branches. We have 501c3, 501c4, and a PAC. And PAC, we are very actively working on it because that's very important, civic engagement, and especially getting involved in politics. So all I want to say is this is America. A lot of us, myself, I came from another country. Over there, you don't have a chance. In this country, you have a chance. All you have to do is rise up and raise your voices, gather with people like Farrah Mozawalla, and we can win. All we have to do is fight. Thank you. That's what I'm going to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The next organization that helped put this together was CARE New York. Noura from CARE New York is here. She's just going to go through just 2 or 3 slides about what CARE is.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Noura, and I'm here on behalf of the Council on American Islamic Relations New York, CARE New York. Our mission is to protect the civil liberties, enhance an understanding of Islam, and empower Muslim Americans across New York. In our experiences, we find that a lot of anti-Muslim hate crime and bias incidents are not necessarily given the attention that they deserve by government agencies. And so we serve as an intermediary to essentially fill that gap. It's important to note that CARE New York is a 501c3 nonprofit, and while we can only engage in limited, lobbying and whatnot, we do have a C4 affiliate that can engage in unlimited lobbying and endorse political candidates and whatnot, and that is called CARE Action. And we can go to the next slide. CARE New York works with a broad coalition of allies to amplify Muslim voices. We fight against surveillance of the Muslim community, profiling at airports, harassment at the border, discriminatory policing, and excessive data retention. And a couple ways in which our advocacy manifests itself is through meeting with elected officials, engaging the media, promoting civic activism, conducting voter registrations to help get out the vote, and educating the community on their rights. And this is something that we do on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and is truly at the crux of our mission. If you go to the next slide, I've outlined just 2 of many areas of discrimination that we see in our community that could be solved by strong civic engagement, right? So we know that religious accommodations at schools in New York City public schools is a big issue. And we also know that masjid construction in New York City is, a big struggle. And we know that if our community members, if we had Muslim members on these boards in these lower levels, then we would be able to see the change that we want to see in our lives, right? And so it's important that we have civic engagement on all levels. And if you go to the next slide, one thing that I would like to point out is that, in order to see true change in our society, like we've already mentioned, is that it's important that we get out the vote and ensure that our community is voting, but not only the Muslim community, but the Asian American community as a whole. And here you can see that of the 1 million Muslims in New York City, 350,000 are registered to vote. And of those, 23.6% voted in the 2025 primary mayoral election. And so while it's important that, while this number might seem a little low, it's on the rise, right? And it's important that we not only vote in the mayoral election, in the presidential election, but also in these lower ranks, hyper local elections as well. And so it's important that we keep that in the front of our mind, especially as we hear from the rest of the workshop today. And so if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about CARE New York or has any questions, feel free to speak with me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Noura. You can go to the next one. So this is Claudia. Claudia, come on. There you go. Are you gonna?
Hi everyone. My name is Claudia. I'm a program director at AAIRE, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to come here and speak with you all today about something we're also passionate about. And I'd like to start with why we're here today, what the purpose of our convening is. Our team at AAIRE, we've determined three main pieces of context for why it's so important to come together here today to talk about digital literacy for civic engagement. The first is the fact that the political landscape is rapidly evolving. The second, language barriers to civic participation that continue to persist. And third, a recurring but overlooked phenomenon that we're going to get into very shortly. So first is the fact that the political landscape is rapidly evolving. In the digital age, digital information plays a critical role, a central role in how people are learning about elections, public policy, civic issues. And I'd like to just look back in history for a moment at how new technology has shaped how we engage with elections. So back in the 1920s, when the radio was first becoming a big thing, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he engaged in the fireside chats to keep our communities engaged with what the government was doing during the Great Depression. In the 1960 election, the TV debate, the first televised debate between JFK and Nixon at that time, it was fundamentally changed how we engage with elections, because suddenly the appearance of the candidate really mattered. It was broadcast straight into their homes. In 2008, 2012, we saw a huge shift into online digital networks for connecting with voters, fundraising, and now social media is the new frontier. AI is such a huge part of that. So I'd like to point out a few big things that we've noticed in the political landscape. The first being that AI is increasingly being used in the political space, in campaigns, ads, voter outreach, and content creation. It's a really great tool at times to turn things out faster, especially in smaller races where there's possibly less manpower, but it can really make it more difficult to distinguish between authentic information and misleading content. And we're going to talk a little bit more today about how to figure out whether something is AI generated, whether it's misleading. Next is that social media platforms, they often prioritize content that's very emotional, triggering, controversial, and highly engaging. So if you are posting something that is just the bare bone facts without a very strong opinion, or something that's looking to light a fire in people, sometimes it doesn't get pushed out through enough in the algorithm. So that is a big change. And that makes it so that online disinformation, misinformation, a lot of those things sometimes pick up a lot more steam online. And next is that political discussions, they increasingly occur through digital platforms, online, whether it be in your group chats, on WeChat, in comment sections on social media. All of those things are where we're seeing seeing political discussion take place more and more. And overall, what we want to take away from this is that our communities need the skills and the tools to critically assess information and participate confidently in civic life. The second thing that we want to focus on today is language barriers. A lot of this presentation has been informed by the study that Farrah had spoke about earlier in this presentation. Between 2023 and 2024, we embarked on a research study of language accessibility for the AAPI community in Long Island. So the purpose of that study was to see how language barriers were affecting our community's ability to access things like emergency services, fire, police, medical, recreation like shopping, childcare. And what we want to focus on today is the effects of language barriers on voting. So we found that more than half of respondents, they reported experiencing difficulty with understanding elections, the voting process. Over 80% preferred candidates who provide campaign materials in their native language. Many respondents rely on ethnic media for election and political information. And if an individual is experiencing language difficulties, they're less likely to rely on mainstream media for political information. And so what this shows us is that we need our candidates to provide digital material in our languages, it's important to tie both digital literacy and language accessibility together, and that's a big thing we're going to be advocating for in the future. And finally, that recurring but overlooked phenomenon of racist, Islamophobic, xenophobic even remarks by elected officials and candidates. So this is something that is persisting with Asian American, immigrant, Muslim, Arab, South Asian, other marginalized communities being targeted by harmful rhetoric and misinformation. And this not only affects how our communities feel about their place in our society and their ability to participate in civic life, but the fact that it is proliferating so much online, it normalizes stereotypes about our community, it deepens polarization. And so our community needs to know how to respond to these remarks. Next slide, please. Yeah, I wanted to point out a few instances that we noticed. We put together a case study last year during Mayor Mamdani's election campaign, where we have Representative Andy Ogles. He was making a statement about Mamdani, calling for his citizenship to be stripped, basically. And we had a flyer by a super PAC that darkened Mamdani's beard to kind of act as like a dog whistle, targeting people's maybe like fears about our community. And we want to emphasize that this is done not only by elected officials, but also by candidates, also by campaigns, super PACs. And so this is something that our community needs to know how to respond to. We want to be able to notice these things, respond to them, and respond to them in our voting behavior by making sure that we're not voting for candidates who are putting forth messages and values that are completely antithetical to our values. And so, in conclusion, why digital literacy matters. Digital literacy helps people find, evaluate, and use civic information in this changing political landscape. When it's paired with multilingual and accessible resources, digital literacy expands equitable access to civic information. It equips communities to recognize misleading content and respond to these racist, Islamophobic, other discriminatory narratives about our community. And then overall, it empowers us to engage confidently and participate in civic life. All right. So I'd like to give some background to the American electoral system, just so we have some context. Our government is split into different levels. We have the federal government, the state government, the local government, and at each of these levels, we're able to vote for who represents us. And each of these levels also deal with different issues that affect our daily life. And our electoral system works where we have primary elections where voters that are registered with the major parties are able to choose which candidates represent them within that party. The winner of that election advances to the general election. In the general election, different parties face off against one another and the winner takes office. There are also special elections when there are vacancies, and also ballot measures in some states, and voters can vote directly on policies, laws, amendments, but this system of governance and representation, where we see different elected officials representing us at each level, it all hinges largely on something very important we want to talk about today, which is the census. So filling out the census ensures that the population is measured accurately and you have the representation you deserve. So I'd like to introduce Liz Yang from APA Voice to speak more about her work on that.
Still eating. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the leadership of AAIRE, Farrah and Claudia and board members and other people who are supporting AAIRE's work. It is visionary, it is timely, and it is essential. APA Voice stands for Asian Pacific American Voting and organizing to increase civic engagement, APA voice. We formed out of advocacy around the 2010 census and redistricting efforts, and we're going to talk more about that in a second. We are the largest Asian Pacific American coalition of 501c3 organizations organizing for civic empowerment and engagement in the state. The 2030 APA Complete Count Committee is also the largest APA coalition of groups organizing for fair and complete census. We have over 25 organizations part of our group, and I'm so proud to say that AAIRE is our most recent organization who has joined APA Voice. So I want to piggyback on what Claudia mentioned about the census. The census is the largest survey by the United States government given to the country. It is administered every 10 years. And why is that important? Because so much of federal funding, Claudia laid out federal, state, and local governments. Federal funding, we're talking federal programs, Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, educational scholarship funds, transportation funds, etc., are federal programs, and they distribute money based on population growth. Makes sense, right? Your place has more people, you get more money. But in order for them to know how many people your area has, you got to complete the census, okay? But why that's important is because once that census is taken, the formula for giving out money in your area based on population growth is in effect for 10 years until the next census. So very critical that the census be completed so communities get their fair share of dollars for federal programs for basic needs. We're talking basic. We're talking healthcare. We're talking, job training. We're talking affordable housing. We're talking about education, etc. Similarly, state city planning. They develop roads and where they're going to put schools and hospitals, etc., based on population, right? State and city planning. If your place in your area has grown, it may need more hospitals, etc. If the population has decreased, they may close a hospital, consolidate with another hospital, etc. Business, research, scientists, media, academia, faith-based organizations, we all rely on census data. I teach at NYU in Columbia for now more than 25 years. So much research is based on the census because, if you do scientific research, health, you need to know how many people are affected by a certain type of illness, how many people, in a certain age group may be looking for a job, how many people live in a certain area that growth has increased, so that could be a source of job search, et cetera, et cetera. So much planning, businesses, Lyft, transportation, et cetera, all depend on population numbers to be able to plan, et cetera. Then what I want to talk about in these next three things is, really quickly, is political power. Claudia focused on voting. Voting is one way to exercise political power, especially for the average person. The other way is redistricting. So you could vote in every election, but if the way your district is drawn prevents people like you and like-minded people from electing a candidate of their choice, because the way the district is drawn always keeps your community in the minority, and you're always put with a community who thinks differently than you, then no matter how many times you vote, you will never be able to elect the candidate of your choice. And the census impacts redistricting because the way the 435 House of Representatives seats are drawn is based on population. So why this is so critical? New York, in the 2020 census, lost a congressional seat. We had 27 congressional seats. We lost a congressional seat because 89 people did not complete the census. That hurts. That stings. 89 people. And that was during the time of COVID. Remember, tough to get people out to complete the census. But nevertheless, we lost a congressional seat. And you know what that means. And that's why this workshop is so timely after the midterm primary congressional races. We have a trifecta right now in the federal government. So those seats in Congress make a huge difference. Similarly, the Electoral College. One thing we didn't have enough time to get into is we don't elect the president by popular vote. We have a system of government called the Electoral College, where each state, based on population, in part, has a certain number of Electoral College votes, okay? And so we, New York, have currently 28 Electoral College votes. The number of House of Representatives, which we currently have 26, because remember, we lost a seat, plus the 2 senators, U.S. senators. So we have 28 of the possible congressional electoral votes. Okay, so all of that is important. So now, why am I here? Because we, APA Voice, know what the importance of the 2030 census is all about. So we have begun early to organize. Next slide. The slide, sorry. We started in January 2025 to begin organizing for the 2030 census. We were in Albany at a major panel with State Senator Jeremy Cooney, Assembly Member Landon Days, APA Voice, to tell people we have to begin now to organize for the 2030 census. Why? Because there have been major proposed changes to how the 2030 census will be conducted. And our community needs to know what those changes are. Nothing is by accident. What is happening in this country, the backlash against minority communities, the rise in hate crime is not by accident. Our numbers are growing and people in power are afraid. They don't have to be afraid of us, but they're afraid, okay? And so, this is really important that we begin now. This training, because of what you have lined up with AI, which is so important, we can't go into the training that we normally conduct in, next slide. We conducted a training in Rochester, New York, very successful in December of last year. Next slide. We did one in the Bronx recently in April of this year. Next slide. We're doing one in Long Island. The one in Rochester and in Bronx was all day for leaders to get them on the same page, because people say, oh, why do we need to know about the 2030 census? We were involved in 2020 because of the proposed major changes, you need to know what those changes are. And as leaders, you need to know how you can empower your community to address those changes. Okay? So it is critical. On August 6th, we are holding a training free for Long Island leaders of APA groups or groups who serve APA communities in Long Island. It will be free. It will be comprehensive. I assure you, and you're going to walk away feeling like you know what's the challenges are. So we encourage you to register by Monday, August 3rd, to attend that training. We will provide dinner. It's free, but you need to register. Okay. Next, regardless of whether or not you can make it on August 6th or not, we have begun early. And I cannot stress enough why, when you go to the training, what's hitting us? What is this new administration doing to prevent us from being counted, to make us be invisible for the next 10 years? So we have to organize. Okay, now what we're doing to start early, we urge everyone here, you click on this code and it's a code that says, very short, 2 seconds to complete it. I commit to completing the 2030 census. It's our way to help start to get the word out about the 2030 census. In the next 2 or 3 years, the 2030 census should be like water. It should be a household word. And you know that when you get the notice to complete the census by the government, you don't throw it away. So if you could take a second, click on this and just say, I commit, I will complete the 2030 census. And then in 2028, 2029, and then as we get to April 1st, 2030, when the census is administered, we'll just send a reminder of your commitment. Don't forget to complete the 2030 census, okay? If you want additional information, when you click on this code, there's a checkoff box if you want additional information. If you don't, then we will just send you periodic notices of your commitment, your civic duty to complete the 2030 census. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Liz for that powerful, inspiring presentation about the importance of filling out the census. Sorry. End of the event, there's a flyer on everyone's desk at everyone's table that has a post-survey QR code embedded in that survey. We have a checkoff if you would like to attend our upcoming event for APA Voices Complete Count Committee and learn more about completing the census and ensuring that all our communities do at our event on August 6th. So I would love if you are part of an organization, if you're a leadership in an organization who's not already involved, to please do fill that out and also get in touch with Liz if you would like to learn more as well. So now that we've learned a little bit more about the American electoral system, we want to share some resources for voting. In New York State, you can register online, by mail, in person, and you can check your voter registration status online as well. For every election, you can verify that your registration is active and your address is correct, and your party affiliation as well if you will be voting in the primary, which of course you really should if you're registered with a major party. To vote, you can vote in person on election day at your assigned polling location. You can also participate early voting at designated early voting sites. You can also vote by mail. I believe in New York, you don't need to have an excuse to vote by mail, so you can also do that, request an early mail or absentee ballot. You can learn all about these things in the New York State Board of Elections and get all that information there. And so part of what we were discussing earlier with language accessibility is that without language accessible resources, this whole endeavor of civic participation is often not possible. So New York State has many resources for language accessibility when you're voting for, when you're registering to vote. So voter registration forms are available in multiple languages, including Spanish, Bengali, Chinese, Korean, Malayalam, Tagalog, and Urdu. I'd like to highlight the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act of New York, which prohibits practices that harm New Yorkers' voting rights. So, of course, you can know your rights as a voter. And as part of it, many local jurisdictions are expanding support for voters with limited English proficiency by providing language assistance. So, one program that helps to provide voter language assistance is the New York City Civic Engagement Commission. They're the commission created by ballot measure that we actually collaborated with just 2 weeks ago if you were at our Urdu language event, where we presented Civic Engagement Commission resources in Urdu to our Urdu community. The Civic Engagement Commission works to expand access to language interpreters at poll sites. You're able to bring an interpreter with you into the polls. You're able to bring materials with you into the polls, and as well as the New York City Civic Engagement Commission also hosts citywide participatory budgeting and supports community boards and other local organizations. So we would encourage you to check them out as well. And as a segue into our activity where we'll be learning a lot more about digital literacy and the different resources you can use to learn about elections and candidates, we just want to point out a few trusted resources for election information. The Board of Elections, Civic Engagement Commission in the city, the State Board of Elections, and your county Board of Elections. And you can always be asking yourself if your information and the information you're seeing is current and up to date, if it's coming from an official source, if you can find it in your preferred language, and if you can verify it as well. And so now that you're prepared to vote, I'd like to introduce Juleigh Chin, a board member of AAIRE, one of my greatest mentors as well, to discuss how to assess candidates while centering digital literacy.
Thank you. Hi friends, my name is Juleigh Chin and I am a proud board member of AAIRE since its inception close to 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. I'm here to talk a little bit about how do we evaluate candidates. And before I do that, I just wanted to share a quick story because when I look around the room today, I'm so encouraged to see that we have such a beautiful mosaic. When we talk about the APA voice, our voices, we're not talking about just one, we're talking about many. And when I look around this room, there's not a single one of us that is exactly the same as the person next to us, right? The one thing that we can say is that we are part of a collective and that we are working together. I had the opportunity to go to a conference in Washington, D.C., where I was meeting with other Asian leaders across the United States, and I talked a lot about AAIRE. And they asked me, how do you get such a pan-Asian group to work together so seamlessly? And I said, I think it's friendship and I think it's respect. You know, once we get to know each other and know that we're all coming from a place of wanting to help ourselves, help each other, and help our communities grow, it's really easy to be able to uplift one another and not think of ourselves solely as being in a silo by ourselves, but that we're working together. So I'm very proud to be here today. I'm proud to join you, and I'm proud to talk about how do we evaluate our candidates. Can we go to the next slide for a second? So one of the things, and any of you can come up and talk to me later, but I know very well, very closely about how we are looking at our candidates, right? The things that are presented to you, the things that we are looking at. Claudia had mentioned earlier, you know, we live in a day and age where we get a lot of our information from things like WhatsApp or WeChat or Facebook, Instagram, and are those really the best places to get your information? Obviously, you are going to get some popular information there, but it might not be correct information. So I do challenge each and every one of us to really look into how we can make informed decisions about a candidate before we go and support them or decide not to support them as well. So we have, there's going to be tons and tons and tons of different voter guides, Board of Election resources. What you need to know, the key question is, what do I want to look further into? Who do I want to look into? Do we want to know who's running for what office? You might have that one friend that you can call like Farrah and say, oh, I live here. What am I supposed to do? And not everybody knows someone like Farrah, right? Someone always has a friend like that, or maybe you're that friend. But you should also teach people how to be that person to look into the information so that they can find out exactly what they need to know about every candidate. So one of the things that we can do is look at campaign websites. And in front of you, you'll see this little packet if you want to take a look at it. Now, we were going to do this where each table was going to do like research and stuff, but we thought that it would be more fun if we just kind of did it together. And in order to make it relevant for everybody, we wanted to choose a candidate or at least a race that all of us will be involved with. And since some of us live in Queens and some of us live in Long Island, we decided to go with a statewide race that every single one of us hopefully will be voting in the next 130 days or so, which is the gubernatorial race, right? So first off, does anybody know who are the two main candidates running for governor right now? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Mariam, tell me. Against who? Bruce Blake. Okay, so now I'm not going to ask you what party affiliate you are. I'm not going to ask you who you are voting for. We are going to look at these two candidates just side by side so we can do some research on how we can learn more about them, okay? I'm not going to ask us to get into a political debate today. There will be more time for that if you wish, or we can meet on WhatsApp if you like. But just for this purpose, for the purpose of this interaction, we're going to just look at these two candidates because we're all going to be voting on it, okay? So can we go into the World Wide Web, okay? And we're gonna look for their websites, right? Now, both candidates have a political website and a governmental website. The government website is going to pretty much talk about what they're doing in their role that they're currently in. Their political website is the one that's going to be talking a little bit more about their stance, right? They might point to things that they've done on the government side. However, this is going to really give you the bread and butter about where they stand on their, on the different issues, who their different supporters are, who they have worked with, what they have done, right? And why is that important to you? Because sometimes, we're all multifaceted people. There are different things that are important to us when we're looking for a candidate, right? Sometimes it might be one issue, and sometimes it might be a dozen issues. So you're going to try to find the person that's going to best represent you and your views, whether it's 1 or 10. Okay, so you're going to go into your friend, Mr. Google, and you're going to type in to find their different websites, and you can look through it. There's going to be beautiful pictures there. There's going to be the work that they've done, the things that they're proud of. Obviously, when you're going into that candidate's website, they're going to tell you the good things about themselves, right? Now, the job of their opponent is going to tell you all the bad things about this person. So you have to read everything and see everything with a grain of salt. You have to be very objective when you're looking at these things, right? Because obviously, one person is trying to get you to vote for them and the other person is trying to get you to vote for them, which means one person is going to try to tell you all the bad things about their opponent, right? So you have to look at these things with a grain of salt. You should look for these to see the good things that they have done first. Keep an open mind. See what both people have done and how they are going to help someone like you in your community that you care about, okay? So just looking we'll take a look at both Blakeman and Hochul, but can someone tell me, what do you think that the main message is here? What do you think that he wants you to see? Anybody can scream it out. All the good work, like what? Like, he says it's making safer, cutting taxes, right? pushing back against Albany mandates, very general, right? He's not going to say, oh, I took away your services. He's going to say, I'm helping, I'm fighting for you, right? Let's look at Hochul's for a second. What is her main message? Her experience. She took lessons of courage, right? She gives her background. She was first elected to the House of Representatives, all of these things. So you have to look for their messaging and understand what it is that they're trying to say objectively. Okay? So if we go, we just talked about what is being said. Let's see if we could spot any biases or coded language. Is there any emotional language? Are there other pages on their websites, or should we just stay on there? Is there any emotional language that you can see so far? Right. Okay. So he's trying, who do you think that he's trying to speak to? Who is his audience there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's look at the next one too, because that one catches my eye. No property tax increases. I mean, how many of you guys would love for your property taxes to go down, right? Everybody. But just because he says that, is that true that necessarily he's going to be able to do that? You don't know for sure, right? And at what cost? At what cost, right? So you have to think objectively about what those words are saying. Let's go back to Kathy Hochul for a second. So anything that stands out here? Any broad generalizations, or are there other pages to her website that we can take a look at? Let's meet Kathy. Just that one. Thank you. That's amazing. The woman empowerment message is there, right? Obviously, she's going to be trying to get the vote of the women as a strong woman leader. She has her own fighting spirit, like all of these things. It's emotional language, right? Yes. On mental health. Does that say that here? It doesn't matter. Well, we know, so these are the things that you have to look for so that you can try to think objectively about how we're going to rank the person that we're going to be voting for. Let's go to the next page. Fact checking. So how do we fact check? How do we fact check if something that she wrote here? I don't know about you guys, but I used to live in a district that was represented by someone who was a grifter who lied a lot on his resume about what he did, where he went, where he worked, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there was not a lot of fact checking there. So how do we do fact checking? Well, we can check, their government websites. We can check election board websites. We can check academic or research institutions, or really just check to see if something that they're claiming is something that can be backed up, right? And if you have enough people saying, I was on the volleyball team and I don't know that guy, then maybe that guy wasn't on the volleyball team, right? Let's look for those red flags. Let's look for what people are saying as well. And then checking our sources. Where are you getting the information? Is it because some random person posted it on TikTok? Is it because even though that person might have 50,000 followers or more, or is it somewhere that you saw it on a WhatsApp, channel, you saw it in a WeChat conversation, you saw people who are talking about these things? You have to be able to take the information that you see and be able to objectively decide whether it's credible information or not. And the last thing is, was it AI generated? And we talked about that a little bit, right? I'll tell you, can I borrow this for a second? I brought from home. Where's my thing? Oh, it's in my bag. So I'm not trying to be biased one way or another. This is not even a political brochure. This is a governmental from where I live. And besides the fact that there's spelling errors, this is something that I just received in the mail this week. Besides that there's spelling errors and clearly photoshopped, which is fine, you know, like things happen. Like even in this little picture right here of the little doggies, I have the original picture. And guess what? People have been deleted and photoshopped. People who might be sitting in this room, whose dogs might be floating in air, floating in midair. The things that you see sometimes are not real. My own little story I'll tell you. I ran for and am running for, in full disclosure, an office in Nassau County. Last year, one of the negative mailers photoshopped myself with now Mayor Mamdani, trying to put us together, pit us to show the community that we're together, you know? Funny thing is, majority of my district are huge Mamdani fans, so it doesn't even work against the people who put it out, you know? But the things that people will put together to try to create a narrative, to show that something that's not actually there, they're trying to prove is there. And they're using AI for that. So you have to be able to look at things with a lens of really understanding whether something is real or something is kind of not real, right? And so we have to be able to be objective about that. Sorry, I'm gonna go back. Okay. And the last thing we're gonna talk about is it the last thing? Whether our values align with the person that's running. And when you look at how people are sometimes endorsed by different political organizations or other political figures, you know, the reason that these kind of endorsements exist is because you might be part of such organization. Like if you're part of a union and your union endorses somebody, it's because they vetted the person to see that you are aligned, that that person is going to be supporting you. Or if a different organization has supported somebody, it's not the end all be all, but it is something to think about, especially if you're part of an organization that is endorsing somebody. And you can usually find that. Do they have that on their website? Their endorsements? No? Over to Farrah to close us out.
Thank you so much, Julie. So we're almost done with our presentation for today. Now, Julie told us amazing information about how to get resources and to know which resources are authentic. What I'm going to tell you today is there is an app, and it's called the Asian American Federation Ballot Builder. And what this app does, or this app does, is it helps us get those resources instantaneously. So if you go, and it's in language. So this is through the Asian American Federation. And if you can just scan that QR code right now, and you should have it on your table. So Aman, if you can have our volunteers, and Atul, if you can have the volunteers go to each table and just help everybody scan that QR code. So right now you're going to be scanning the QR code. I'm seeing everyone do it. Just scan the QR code. You have it on the table. The volunteers are coming around to help you if you need any help or assistance. You can switch to the next one. Do you want to go to the next slide? Okay. This ballot builder is nonpartisan. Anyone can use it. And it's not for any political party. It's from a nonprofit. So this will help us find the races for your area. You can learn about the candidates. You can understand any ballot proposals there in your language. And you can prepare who you're going to vote for before you actually go and vote. And this is available in many different languages, as mentioned below. You go to the next one. You can go to the next one. So again, like we said, this is for your personalized ballot. So you're going to right now click on that, and we're going to just all do it together. So Claudia, you can go to the next one. So you're opening up the website. Does everybody have it? Team members, you got it? You're helping them? Okay. So you're going to put an address down. If you live in New York City, you can use your address. If you're uncomfortable using your address, you can put the grocery store next to your house. If you don't live in New York City, you can use the address of this Long Island City hotel. So you can use that address. If you need an address, volunteers have extra addresses from just some of our team members who live in the city. You can use their address. But everybody needs to put a New York City address in, because this ballot builder is right now only in New York City. We're trying to get it for Long Island also, and that's going to hopefully be the next step. But for right now, it's in New York City. So if you can just put in your New York City address. We're good? All right, next one. You can put your email address in. This is just so you have the information saved. If you don't feel comfortable with your email address, you can just skip it for now. So now you should be on the site. This is going to tell you when your next election is, when it's November 3rd. It's going to tell you the last day to register to vote, when early voting begins, anything, when you have to, last day to request an absentee ballot, last day for early voting, election day. It even tells you where you're going to vote. And if you have any more questions, you don't need to call me. You can call the AAIRE voter hotline. So when you get onto that ballot, you'll see where these races are happening and like what impacts you. Is taxes important to you? You can look up their stance on taxes. If civil rights is important to you, look up their stance on civil rights. Whatever topic you want, it'll be able to help you find and navigate through it. And I'm hoping our volunteers are still walking around just helping everyone. The next one. Because we really need you to register and just put in your information so that we also have it. This will also tell you your district. So if you don't know, like, who's my congressperson? Who's my state senator? Who's my assembly? If you're in New York City, what's your school district? This tells you all of the different levels of government for your address. Now that you know how to use this, and it's so simple to navigate, because if I can do it, you can do it. Please share it with your friends, your family, and your communities, because most of you are leaders of different organizations. So we're hoping you're going to share this ballot builder with your community so they are more informed about the voting process. And we are done for today. I apologize. It was very hot, but I want to thank all of you guys for coming and making a difference. If you could just fill out this last survey so we can make make our programs better. I'm so grateful you all came. Thank you so much. If you want, I know everybody is really exhausted, but could we do a group picture? Would that work? Yeah?